Good evening. Welcome to the Lebanon Economic Development Commission special meeting, Monday, July 2nd. I will call it to order. Roll call. Kevin Van Horn.
Present.
Brad Bailey, present. Mike Kincaid, absent. Can I have an election of officers? Kevin, do you make any recommendations for president?
I'm going to make a recommendation that Brad be president.
I'll second that. Vice president, I make a recommendation for Kevin Van Horn. All in favor?
I'll accept it.
And for secretary, we'll go with Mike Kincaid. You agree with that, Kevin?
Absolutely, yes.
So you want to do a motion to approve all that?
Yes. Can I have a motion to approve all that?
I make a motion.
Okay. So motion second. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right. For new business, Rob, if you'll read the action.
Yes, thanks, Mr. President. We're here today to talk about the consideration of the Lebanon Economic Development Commission report and the Gateway Marketplace project. And I think in order to give us a background, if Ben Bontrager and then the mayor and Catherine Finello, I think will give some background on that project.
Good evening, Commission members. Ben Bontrager, Planning Director for the city. Just give you a real broad, brief overview of the project itself, and then let the mayor talk a little bit about the benefits of the project, and Catherine will get into the details on the financial side. Lebanon Gateway Marketplace is about a 24 plus or minus acre retail development that is being proposed at the southeast corner of Interstate 65 and State Road 32. You guys probably all familiar with this site. It's the former Shoemates industrial site. There are two large industrial buildings that sit there now that will be demolished to make way for the proposed development that you see here. The major anchor tenant is being proposed as a medical office building, first phase 40,000 square feet with the potential to double in size as needed. That would be represented by the larger 7-acre parcel here to the south. There is a site that's being proposed as and marketed for a hotel development, probably about an 80 or so unit limited service hotel. And then there are a series of 5 outlots that are designed and sized appropriately for uses such as family sit-down restaurants, potentially some fast food, other B shops, potential banks, et cetera. So some of the typical things you might see on some of those outlots. But there definitely is quite a bit of emphasis on food and drink establishments. So that is definitely something, as we talked about the developer, we want to really place some emphasis on that. So as you will see also, it doesn't show up very well on the monitors, but there is a significant amount of infrastructure that needs to be developed as part of the project. So there's two main components. One is the demolition of those structures, and they are significant size structures, and the quotes we're hearing now, it's probably at least $500,000, maybe up to $750,000 just to demolish those structures. And then there is somewhere in the range of $2 to $2.5 million worth of public infrastructure that needs to be installed on the property in order to service these sites. As you can see, there's a major realignment of Rainsdale Road in order to align with Ping Avenue as it goes to the north on the other side of 32. Then there's a secondary road, Gateway Avenue, that runs through the site to provide access to those lots as you go further to the west. In addition to what you see above ground, there's a significant amount of work below ground that's also necessary. Quite a bit of water, sanitary sewer, storm sewer, electric, et cetera. That's all major components of this project. As I said, there's a significant cost. So this is a project that the developer has already closed on the property, and as soon as we work our way through the details of the financial side of it, then they will be breaking ground still yet this summer or early fall. So this is something that will move forward very quickly as we make our way through this process. That's a good high-level overview of the project, and if you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer them.
I don't have any questions.
No questions.
Very good. Thank you.
Yep.
Just want to touch briefly too on the benefits to the community. So since I came in as mayor, right, a lot of the things I hear or how do we bring more family restaurants, how do we bring more places to eat here in Lebanon. Of course, this is a prime redevelopment site for us right on 65 and 32. The challenge has always been convincing the owner of the property to make those into something more developable and more appealing and more desired by the city, right? And unfortunately, they were kind of used as storage for his business, so it really wasn't always maybe the highest and best use for that. So we had to find a community partner that was going to work with us, a developer was going to partner with us to find the right fit for us, and I think we have found that in this developer. Of course, there are challenges with the site. Of course, the two large empty buildings we're talking about, which has been mentioned, the demolition cost. But then also there are no internal utilities or internal road systems. So that's why we're coming to this board tonight to talk about the value of how we leverage the development potential along with coming to partner alongside with them on the public right-of-way side and installing the infrastructure to help make these open for development and bring those amenities that people want to see in Lebanon. So I think this is going to be a great project for us. It's something that I think the whole community will benefit from, and it's great to have a partner that we can work with that's going to help bring in the things that people want here in Lebanon. So it's a partnership between the city and developer that's going to benefit the whole community. Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Catherine Finello, Public Finance Attorney with Krieg Duvall. So what you have before you is a project report, basically describing what we heard from Ben and the mayor, and asking you to make certain findings with the project, which is a step that is required as we proceed to financing the project. And as Ben talked about, the project needs some public infrastructure, and that's what the city would be investing here by issuing a bond not to exceed $3.3 million, which would generate somewhere in the neighborhood of about $2.5 million in construction proceeds to provide for those infrastructure projects. And we would structure the bonds as a lease rental bond, whereby we would have the Lebanon Public Building Corporation serve as the lessor of the public improvements to the Redevelopment Commission, who would be the lessee. And both what we call the Redevelopment Act and the Economic Development Act under the Indiana Code provide for this type of financing arrangement. And the city would pay for the lease, or the RDC would pay for the lease rental payments from the tax increment revenues that are generated by the new development. So the incremental property tax proceeds that will be received would go towards payment of the lease rental. The city is also looking at, to the extent that the tax increment would not be sufficient to pay the lease rental payment, looking at food and beverage tax revenues. As the mayor and Ben talked about, the development will have restaurants, which will obviously add to the food and beverage tax collection, so looking at that. And then lastly, as a last resort, special benefits tax backup, which is basically a property tax that is levied by the redevelopment district, which is the Redevelopment Commission. I think that is it. So we would be coming to you later on with some follow-up approval documents with regards to the actual financing. But today is basically an introduction of the project and to make you aware of the type of financing that we're looking at, because you will actually be voting on a later date on a resolution making a recommendation to the City Council who has final approval on the financing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, this is a public hearing. We will open it up to the public. We will ask that you state your name and your address. Can anybody come on up? Okay. Being a public hearing, we will limit this to 3 minutes.
That's really not enough, but very quickly then. Sandra Breedlove, 725 West, 300 North, and I have questions about this project. It's a TIF grant, as I understand it. Is that clear? is
Yeah.
what they're requesting.
What is the question?
Is this a TIF grant for this development? Because this is not a TIF area, right?
Let me actually explain that. It is going to be a tax increment area.
But it is not now.
It is, actually, the redevelopment commission has taken the first steps to establish it by passing a declaratory resolution.
Can we have you step up to the mic? Sorry.
The redevelopment commission has taken the first steps to establish this as a tax increment allocation area, and I should have mentioned that in my speech earlier. And the redevelopment commission will, on July 9th, is expected to adopt the confirmatory resolution for the allocation area. So at the time that we proceed with the financing of this, the city's portion of this project, a tax increment allocation area will be established.
But it will not be done until the 9th, is that correct?
Correct. So
Okay, so it is
Ben,
not
do you wanna
yet a
step-
TIF.
I've got Ben behind you.
I just want to clarify, this site is already in our existing tax increment finance district. We're setting up a separate sub-allocation area for this site to carve it out as its own specific site. So basically, the tax increment from this project will be used in this project, but this site already is in our existing TIF district.
that's the Lebanon Consolidated Economic Development Area.
Okay. You've had TIFs for several years, and citizens in Lebanon, the money for the TIF after improvements in the district, the taxes stay in for further development, and it is not used to pay city expenses. And so those city expenses have been picked up by the citizens or residents of Lebanon and the businesses that are not in the TIF district. So after all of these years of picking up expenses for your TIFs, what are you doing for those residents and for those businesses that are not in the TIF? What percentage of your TIF money is helping to pay for schools?
Ms. Breedlove, we can take your questions down and follow up with you further, but this is just an opportunity really for public comment.
This is public comment.
Right. And so we can note those, but it's not necessarily, it's from the standpoint of answering questions. Or the purpose of this meeting is just a public hearing on providing for the report of the Economic Development Commission. There will be also opportunity at the Redevelopment Commission if you have further questions as it relates to the financing of the project.
So that's on the 9th?
Yes.
That these questions can be asked. It can be asked before you pass this?
The purpose of today's public hearing is just to address the report of the Economic Development Commission and certain findings. The Redevelopment Commission will be meeting on July 9th, and you're certainly, if you'd like to attend that meeting and ask further
Okay.
questions.
Are any of you economic researchers? Do you have contact with an economic researcher?
We have contact with the Boone County Economic Development Corporation.
Is he an economic researcher?
Molly Whitehead is a CEO of the Boone County
Okay.
Economic Development
But
Corporation.
she's not an economic
She's a
researcher.
professional economic development person.
Okay. Well, if you don't have someone that is qualified as an economic researcher, the benefits for the welfare of the community should be called into question. So I would suggest that you do have that valuation to help the community be aware that all that is being done in this business is being done for the benefit of the entire community, not just people that benefit from the benefits of an economic development area.
Okay, well, we have Ben, who is our resident person for communication between the city and the Boone EDC.
Yes,
He has the knowledge to answer the questions that you are asking.
but he's not an economic researcher, and there have been very negative reports about some of these business decisions by Michael Hicks in the Indianapolis Star, who is an economic researcher. California did away with TIFs in 2014. There must have been a really good reason for that.
California does a lot
And
of
we need
things.
to know whether or not it's going to be for the benefit of the entire community, not just certain special interests. All right?
Okay.
So that's why you need to really have that an objective evaluation made for the benefit of all of your citizens. Okay?
Sounds
Thank
good.
And
you.
I will be asking the questions at the next meeting if I'm still living. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public?
Yeah, just from a public perspective, again, I think I hear constantly people asking, how do we bring more restaurants to Lebanon? This is how we do this. You know, restaurants need roads for people to access them. I think, I think we all have different philosophies maybe on what government's role is in a community and in a society, but I think if we can't agree that government is supposed to build roads, I don't know where we are as a nation. So these funds are being leveraged to install infrastructure, to redevelop the community, to bring more amenities, to bring more options for dining. I think there's a direct benefit from the district to what's being installed here. I think it should be a no-brainer for you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to clarify something. What he said was that we spend money on infrastructure that provides a way for people to get to new businesses, and that's the role of the city. But what you said was, it made it sound like we are paying money for businesses to come in here. But what we're doing is providing resources like a road, a sidewalk, to get to the business who's going to build there. So we don't spend any money on giving something to the business itself. We don't buy any chairs or tables or anything like that. But we do, put the road and the street in there, so they can put a building there, so they can then hire people and feed people and that type of thing.
But that tax money, the GIS stays in it as they pay it, is that correct? It pays for the bonds?
Correct.
Yes, that's money that could be used for 10% of school expenses that would benefit all the citizens. It could be used, there's a concern in Lebanon for children not having nutrition needs met in this community expressed by people.
Well, that goes to another whole nother section. That's,
But it's an it's a need of the community. So it all depends on what your priorities are, and there are benefactors of the developers, and there are benefactors with the bond attorneys, but you need to be thinking about the rest of the citizens that are picking up the expenses. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? We are going to close the public hearing.
Mr. President, Commission, then what we have before you from an action item is the report of the City of Lebanon Economic Development Commission concerning the proposed financing of the economic development facilities for the Lebanon Public Building Corporation. And this report says that the proposed economic development facilities consist of the projects listed in Exhibit A, and that are in or physically connected to the Gateway Marketplace allocation area, within the Lebanon Consolidated Economic Development Area in the city of Lebanon, which will support a proposed mixed-use development, the facilities to be constructed by Kenmar LLC, and that's the developer, and that's what Mr. Bontrager was talking about earlier. That this commission estimates that the public works or services, including the public ways, water, sewer, streetlights, made necessary or desirable by the projects is approximately $2.5 million. No other public facilities, including fire protection or schools, will be made necessary or desirable on account of the proposed projects because any such services already exist. And again, as was indicated earlier, the commission estimates that the total cost of the financing of the projects will be approximately $3.3 million, including interest, debt service reserve, and cost of issuance of the bonds. The commission estimates that the facilities and the projects will create approximately 50 construction jobs with an estimated annual payroll of approximately $754,000 and approximately 80 new jobs with an estimated annual payroll of $2 million. And again, that the commission finds the facilities and the projects will not have a material adverse competitive effect on similar facilities already constructed or operating in the city. And I believe, Catherine, correct, the numbers that were listed in D came from the developer and its counsel. Is that correct? Yeah, thanks. So we would be asking, again, commission just for an action item on this report that would be given, that's been proposed to you.
Okay. Have an action item?
Motion.
A motion for an action item?
I'll second that motion.
So do we, I think what we're looking for is a motion to approve, if that's what the commission would do, the report that is before you.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any noes? Motion passes. Any other business that needs to come to us? With that being, we are officially done with that. So we are going to adjourn with no other business. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second that motion.
Motion to adjourn passed, and we're adjourned. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we're done. Thank you.
Aye.